Keep up with the news here. Lakehurst, New Jersey. Officials said today that they had cleared a 2-month clogging of the Main Street sewer line. Heaven's sakes. Workmen said that the blockage had been caused by a brazier, size 46C. Well, you know, you got to keep up with the news. You don't just see this kind of news on the Walter Cronkite newscast. No, not at all. Here's... I see there's a shortage of Chinese cooks around the world. It says here, just can't get enough of them. Because the Chinese have taken up eating French cooking. And, oh, jeez, you just can't. You can't. You want to hear some more news? Let's see. I have a collection of news here. Let's see. I hadn't heard the news here today. Let's see. In London, if you think things are bad here, listen to this one. A man in London reported to police that a buildup of gasoline in his carburetor exploded and wrecked his brand new car that was only 2 hours old. I mean, that's enough to put lemons all over your car, right? When the hood blows off, the windshield caves in. His name is Eugene Bangs, too. Significantly, I suppose. George, just seems to fit. I see in Newcastle, kind of like this, Australia, a supersonic Mirage fighter aircraft shot itself down today. Yeah, what it was doing was out target practicing, see? And he's taking this low pass over the ground there, and he's shooting this cannon down at the targets, and it seems that the bullets ricocheted, came back right up, and blew the hell out of him. And down he came. So there's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance. Oh, he's okay. He ejected and landed safely, although he has one heck of a damage charge that he had to sign for that. You realize, of course, when you're in the service and you break a dish or something like that, you have to sign a form that says that you're responsible for that, and they take it out of your pay. You know. Did you know that? Oh, I'm sure you knew that. Everybody knows everything. I see that in Poughkeepsie. No, I don't want to read that one. That's terrible. Right. But you know that you can get the instant ready mix bourbon now. Let me do a news note here. Yeah, it comes in a powder form. You just mix it up with water. It's ready mixed bourbon. I don't know what the point of ready mixed bourbon is, but it's just one of those things. Yeah, well, here's a guy. Cedar Rapids. There's a lot of action in Cedar Rapids. XL Hodge. It's a great name. XL Hodge. That's spelled E-X-E-L-L. XL Hodge escaped serious injury in a shooting incident. It seems that a .32 caliber bullet was deflected by his upper plate, and it bounced off his lower plate, bounced off twice off the upper plate, down off the lower plate, and then right out his mouth. Broke a window, ricocheting like that. Didn't even break his teeth. But he said it was an exciting moment. That bullet was bouncing around there in his upper plate. So, you know, things, that'd make a nice Adam 12 episode, wouldn't it? I just thought I'd tell you, though, that things are getting very normal, and I'm glad to see that. And tonight, the subject of our sermon tonight, fellow parishioners, fellow sufferers, and by the way, before the evening is out, I want to see plenty of folded money in that plate. That's right. I'm tired of having plates that clink coming up here, the collection plates. I want to hear nothing but the rustle of folded money. That's the money, believe me, that they speak of in heaven. They do not speak of dimes and quarters. They speak of real money. So would you please bring on some collection plate music, please? That's right. And now, while the chorus sings from Kirkel listing 572, we will form up here and pass the plates up and down throughout the congregation. I want to hear a lot of paper hitting a lot of plates. That's what I want to hear up here. The salvation don't come cheap, friends. Bring it up. Hold it, Al. Hold it. Just stop it right there. We don't have to re-cue that one. You just keep it right there. I was sitting in the waiting room today, the eternal waiting room, and I'm looking through the ads, and it started again. It really has. I must say that it's all going to come back. You know, there's a theory in history circles that history moves in cycles. You know, it's. By the way, that I have to correct a phrase. People keep saying a vicious circle. It is a vicious cycle, not circle. Cycle. Just correcting you out there. So class, make a note of that if it comes up in the finals. I want the correct terminology used in the blue book. Now, history is a vicious cycle. It just keeps coming back at you. There is a rumor around that within a very short time, comparatively, historically, people would begin to wear armor again. And for the same reason. Do you know that back in the medieval days, before actually, a little earlier than the medieval days, that people wore armor to protect them from other people? There were marauding bands of muggers in those days. They didn't call them muggers. Mugger is a comparatively recent term, but it was the same process. They leap out at you from the bushes and divest you of your property and then stick a shiv in your gut. Yeah, well, that's that happens to many people right here in this town. So they took to wearing armor. That's what the original chainmail was for. It was prevent. It wasn't for warfare. It was to prevent marauding bands from laying it on you. Now, as we can see just by looking around, that whole mistake is returning. You know, the marauding bands, and eventually, I think Macy's is going to show a nice line of chainmail and various other accoutrements that you will need to take a stroll down the street. Did you know that even dogs wore armor in those days? If you had a pet dog, the dog or the horse that you had, often it was a deer hound, a great big hound, that they wore armor, again, to prevent marauding bands. And so the day will come when a nice lady will leave her apartment on 57th Street to walk her poodle, and she'll first don her visor, and put the whole works on, and go out, put the chainmail on Fifi, and go out, and Fifi will do her little thing there next to the fire plug, and it'll all be part of a returning cycle. And then, of course, there will have to be naturally the gallant will return. You know what the original knights were, don't you? They were people who really just said, look, I've had enough of this marauding band jazz, and I'm going to go out and knock a few heads. They were the original hero of walking tall. You know, that's really true. And they would go out, you see, and they would accompany ladies on quests and things of that nature. And she would wear her ladylike armor, but he would wear his knightly armor, which is combat armor. And he would go out and knock the heads. And of course, then it began to go downhill when the marauding bands got better armor. They did. They wound up with great armor. And so, just a vicious circle, or do you prefer cycle? That's correct. I knew you'd be right. See? It's already appearing on the final. So there are those who have said that the Depression is returning. Well, already, do you know that 2 marathon dances have broken out? Did you know that? A marathon dance was begun outside of Seattle just 10 days ago. And it is still going on, as far as I know. They're playing things like Red Sails in the Sunset, various other Depression hits, Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? Although with the kind of depression that we have right now, which is also associated with an inflation, a dime is meaningless. So you couldn't go out there and sing, Brother, can you spare a dime? You have to say, Brother, can you spare your credit card for 10 minutes? Something like that, I'm looking for a little something to eat. And so they say that the vicious circle, or vicious cycle, if you prefer, is beginning to show fruit. It's beginning to reach its actual developmental stage. Now, what can you expect in the next few years, then, if the Depression is returning? Well, you can expect a president to run on the issue that he is going to give an entire new deal to all the people. It will not be called a New Deal, but it will be a phraseology of that. It's going to be a whole new ball game. There will be a guy run on that. He will probably run in '76 on that ticket. Already we see that, yes, you can see it, can't you? He's got a whole new game. And there will be other things begin to happen. For example, it's already happening in certain areas of New York now. People are going into little businesses that are not essentially their own business. You know, you'll find a stockbroker will be working at McDonald's. Well, the next move, the next step, of course, will be you'll see guys out standing around. They won't be selling apples. The apple is not as popular as it used to be in those days. They'll be selling avocados, perhaps, on the street corner, or maybe pineapples, things of that nature. You can see it happening, can't you, Al? Now, why I'm saying this is I was looking in a magazine. I was in the eternal waiting room of life and looking at the ads, and here is an ad that has to be, it's a classic ad. It says, and it shows a lady looking very happy and rich, and it says, "Make money making donuts. New, greaseless, different. No experience needed. The new electronic triangular-shaped donut machine makes 14 dozen triangular-shaped donuts an hour. Plain, iced, raisin, any kind of donut you want. Make big money in your own home selling donuts that you yourself make." Now, I'm going to tell you a little story about the donut machine. Have I ever told you this story, Al? One of the saddest things that I ever saw happen in my entire life. Really did. Have you ever lived in the neighborhood where some guy, is somebody in your family, somebody in your, this is going to happen to a lot of you kids. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it will happen to you. That somebody who's a friend of your family, like some guy that comes over with his wife all the time and they have dinner and lunch with your mother and so on. You know, somebody who's a friend of the family. You know what's called a friend of the family? You know, somebody that just comes over. They used to work with you, old man. They're working at another place now, that kind of stuff. Well, have you ever had the experience of a friend of the family suddenly and inexplicably being totally out of work? That's interesting. You will have that happen. I bet oh yes. I'm talking about a friend of the family who was hitherto solvent, who is now out of work. Well, we had this friend of the family, lived in a block, see? They were people who lived 4 or 5 doors away, and they lived in this house. And they used to come over once in a while. I never really, they had a kid, see, but I never hung around with this kid much they had. But Roy and Bernice used to come over about every couple of weeks, and they would have dinner at the house, you know. Roy and Bernice lived 2 or 3 doors down, and I was a kid, and their kid was a little older than me, so I didn't have much to do with them. But Roy and Bernice would always come over, and I always hated those days when Roy and Bernice came over, because then we'd all have to sit around the dining room table and have supper and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I had to play with this kid who was named Clifford, and Clifford was old, and he was kind of skinny and a nervous kid. And that was the friend of the family. Well, or one of the friends. Well, one day we're sitting around having dinner, and the old man is sitting there, and he's reading the paper, and all of a sudden he looks up. This I remember very vividly, because you know when you think in terms of friends of the family when you're a little kid, I was about 10, maybe 9, something like that. They remain sort of that way. They're forever set that way. You think of them as permanent. There they are. That's, Mr. Anderson works at the Roundhouse, right? Okay? You think of Mr. Bruner works at the Acme Electric Company. You know, that's where they are, right? So the old man is sitting there, and he puts his paper down, and he says to my mother, he said, have you talked to Bernice lately? My mother says, no, why? She hasn't called lately. He says, well, I ran into Roy today. And no wonder she hasn't called you. My mother says, what do you mean? What's the matter? Are they sick or something? He says, no, Roy is out of work. Roy lost his job. My mother says, what? Why, he's been down at the phone company for 107 years. The old man says, he's out of work. He's lost his job. They're laying off. And he's out of work. They laid Roy off. Just what's he going to do? He says, I don't know. He's out of work. He's looking for a job. Well, at that point, that changed everything around the neighborhood, roughly, because you would see Roy walk down the street, Roy Wheeler, walk down the street, and he's wearing a suit. He's all dressed up, and he's got a briefcase, and he's always going down the street towards the bus line. He's always walking down and waiting for the bus. And my mother one day told me what he was doing. See, I see him go past, and she says, Mr. Wheeler is going out to look for a job. Now, there's a thing that a lot of you guys who are out of work are going to learn. Any of you guys that are new out of work, that there is one thing about being out of work that is never discussed, and that is you become a social pariah. And a lot of your friends who were your friends previously are no longer your friends. Oh, they claim they are. They say they are. But curiously enough, they're no longer as available as they used to be. Because you see, there is a rumor that's floated around among people who work for a living that out-of-workness is catching, like the bubonic plague. It's contagious. And so Roy and Bernice, a couple of weeks after this, I remember, they came over for dinner. See, and here's Roy. He's all, he's got his sport shirt on. And he's wearing his sport. Looked just like he always did. See, but me and my kid brother, we're not aware. We were fascinated because we knew there was something different about Roy and Bernice, because the old man and my mother kept talking about Roy and Bernice once in a while. They'd talk about him, but they would always talk about him in terms of, gee, that's really too bad. It was sorrow was being radiated. See. And all of a sudden, here's Roy and Bernice in our house, see, with Clifford. and my kid brother's sitting there. And my kid brother, I always remember this terrible moment. He was a kid, a real kid. You see, there's a difference between a 7-year-old kid and like a 10-year-old kid. This is a real kid, see. We weren't sitting down 5 minutes when all of a sudden my kid brother says, he says, Mr. Wheeler? And Mr. Wheeler says, oh, go ahead, call me Roy. He always wanted you to call him Roy. He says, yes, what's up? He says, you want me to pass the potatoes? And my kid brother says, how does it feel to be out of work? Boom! Well, at that point, I could see my mother, my mother's face, you've always heard the expression when you read novels, turned ashen. My mother's face, The old man says, now, will you eat your mashed potatoes and shut up, will you? And Roy Wheeler tried to laugh it off. He goes, well, I'll tell you, it's kind of nice to lay around the house, right? Isn't that right, Bernice? You get a little rest? Well, that began an entire cycle, which should go on the record at this point. About 3 or 4 days later, maybe a week later, I came home from school. This is WR, by the way, and before we go any further, how about a couple of commercials? You will hear the true story of the out-of-work sickness. So don't tune away. It's important. It may strike you at any time.
Ah, Watson, and how was your evening at the theatre?
Splendid, but how did you know, Holmes, that I was at the theatre?
Now, Watson, you took your entire family to the Broadhurst Theatre, had a magnificent time viewing a thrilling mystery, and afterwards applauded heartily.
Holmes, how do you do it?
I see 5 ticket stubs still in your shirt pocket, the programme from the Broadhurst Theatre still in your back pocket, and your palms are still red from applauding.
But how did you know it was an exciting mystery we saw?
Elementary, my dear Watson. A play about me is by definition a frightfully exciting evening in the theatre.
Sherlock Holmes. See it now at the Broadhurst Theatre.
We're sure at Shopwell.
Have we got a beef? Sure, we've got a beef. Of the tender, tasty, juicy beef Shopwell's so famous for. Shopwell's fantastic quality-fed beef. Sirloin steaks, shells of beef, chuck steak, rib roast, fresh ground beef, even filet mignon. All your favorite cuts, all USDA choice beef, and all priced to help you get more while you spend less at Shopwell. You're going to love Shopwell's beef. Am I sure? You can count on it. Shopwell's unconditional guarantee guarantees it.
We're sure you're gonna spend less, get more of the best.
Oh, you bean freaks. Campbell's Pork and Beans are their special this week. 1 pound can. 4 for only $1. You can go totally ape this week.
At Shopwell, at Shopwell, at Shopwell.
Well, you vitamin cuckoos, are you interested in vitamins containing natural source ingredients? Well, that sounds official. There is a broad line of Squibb vitamins containing these natural source ingredients, and they call them Golden Bounty, which is now available in your area, even where you live. The Squibb name is important when you buy vitamins because, let's face it, you want a name you can trust, which is more than you can say for some of your friends. Squibb has marketed vitamin products since 1875, so you make an investment in confidence when you buy good old reliable Squibb vitamins. Now, these are Golden Bounty vitamins, and they're natural ingredient vitamins, and they're naturally good, of course. So if you'd like to see these beautiful magnificent vitamins, you can see them at the Evergreen Pharmacy, 24 Main Street in South Bound Brook, New Jersey. That's South Bound Brook, right? Now, let's see. We have another little Squibb thing here. A Squibb. Which high-potency vitamins do physicians and pharmacists recommend most? Well, it's a moot point. They say, however, Theragran and Theragran M with minerals by Squibb is the one that they recommend. The name Squibb on the label, of course, means you have no doubt about the honor or the integrity of the maker. And right now you can take advantage of a fantastic special offer. If you're really into vitamins, you can buy 100 Theragran or Theragran M tablets at the regular price and get 30 extra tablets at no extra cost. That means 30 free when you buy 100. Now, that's a month's supply for one person, but the offer is limited, so you better get on the stick. Get your Theragran by Squibb now. And let's see, where can you do that? Well, here's one place, the Pilgrim Pharmacy on Hillside Avenue at 1598 in New Hyde Park, New York. That's Theragran by Squibb.
How do you reconcile your work life with taking care of your kids? This is a question that more parents face every day. That's why the March issue of Ms. Magazine reports some of the compassionate and brand new answers. For instance, take a good look at the child who smiles out from the March cover of Ms. Magazine. She's 16 months old, and she's been coming to work with her mother, a Ms. staff member, ever since she was 5 weeks old. My name is Gloria Steinem, and I work at Ms. Magazine, too. Our March issue tells you what it's like to have kids in the office, and it also gives you a lot more. There's Francis Fitzgerald reviewing real war movies, The Secrets of War We Never Learned from John Wayne. There's Alice Walker telling us about Zora Neale Hurston, a black woman whose writing and life have been well-kept secrets until now. There's also news about breast cancer, which may come as news to both you and your doctor. In fact, there's too much crammed into these pages even to list in 1 minute. Over 1.5 million Americans have become Ms. readers. Why? Well, pick up the March issue of Ms. Magazine on your newsstand and see for yourself.
Shopping for Hers potato chips and snack foods is a family affair because Hers has something for everyone. Potato chips, pretzels, corn chips. Everybody finds a favorite. Hers potato chips taste better because they're made naturally with no preservatives added. Invite a Hers party and picnic barrel to your next little gathering. Hers potato chips will be a welcome guest. Hers, good things from the country.
Oh, wait a minute. I can see guys turning away. Hey, you can catch that from the radio, but, being out of work. So, anyway, you want to hear what happened? About 3 or 4 days later, I come home from school. A kid, I'm walking in, and my mother's in the kitchen there doing her thing. And I go through the kitchen, I get my stuff, and I go out, and I'm doing my thing with Schwartz and Bruner and all the guys. We're playing and doing this stuff, playing ball or kicking a football or something. I come back in again, and my kid brother's in. He's making a peanut butter sandwich. The whole routine. This is life is going on. The phone rings. My mother goes into the living room or the dining room. We had the phone there, and she gets on the phone. She says, "Oh, hello, how are you?" She had a funny sound in her voice. "Oh, hello, how are you?" There's a sound that people get in their voice, which the sound can be heard twice in a person's daily life. Either when he's lying and wants to sound like everything's okay, or when they're getting a phone call that they don't want to hear, and yet at the same time they can't say, "Oh, hello, how are you, Charlie? Oh, yeah, it's good to hear from you, My mother says, "Oh, hello, Bernice. Yes, it's very good. Yes, how are you?" "Yes. Well, gee, I don't know. I'll ask him." "Yes. Oh, it's really good. How are you, Bernice?" "Yes. How's Roy?" Oh, very good. Oh, gee, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, don't worry, everything will work out, yes. Okay, well, I'll ask him. I'll call you back, Bernice. She hangs up. Well, I got this sound, I got the sound of this funny voice. Well, I didn't think anything of it. I go back out and I'm hitting the ball or, beating up Schwartz or whatever it is I was doing. So about an hour goes by and the old man drives up the driveway into the house. That meant immediately when the car came up the driveway, you came in because it was going to be supper right away. He was one of those guys, hey, what's for supper tonight, So I go, charging up the back steps and into the kitchen. The old man has just opened himself a can of beer, he's sitting down there and he's got his tie loose and he's looking around and he's got the paper and and my mother's hanging over the sink and all of a sudden my mother right there, just as I came in, she says, oh, by the way, she said, Bernice called. Noma says, oh, no. She says, yeah, Bernice called. They want us to come over for dinner Friday. Oh, God, no. Oh, wow, what are we going to do? Oh, gee. I just don't like going over there now. It's just you can just see the old man. He feels like I always felt, I just don't like going over there. Oh, listen, I'll tell you what. You didn't say yes, did you? Well, he says, no, I didn't say yes. And he says, look, I'll tell you what you do. Call her back and tell her I got to go to listen, I got an idea. Tell her that I got to go to a union meeting. No union meeting. He's out of work. I don't want to remind him of that. Tell him I got to go down to the meeting of the bowling. Yeah, I'm on the executive committee of the bowling league, right? He knows I bowl on Wednesday, but tell him that the executive committee of the bowling league is meeting Friday night, and I can't make it, and forget it. We'll give him a call. We'll give him a call. Don't tell him you'll call him, but tell him we'll give him a call, okay? So my mother goes into the next room, and she says, hello, Bernice? Oh, gee, I'm just so sorry. Yeah, I was just talking to him, but that darn bowling thing he's in, they're having a meeting Friday, yeah. And, yeah, well, he can't come, Yeah, well, listen, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a call. Let's let it that way, right? And say hello to Roy for us, okay? And tell him good luck, yeah. Yeah, well, we'll give you a call, okay? Okay, so long, Bernice. And she hangs up. I mean, when you hear your mother and father lie, right like that, that changes. A lot of those little things are clicking over in your head, see? So it was a dead lie. He wasn't going to a bowling meeting or anything like that. And so the old man says, oh, God. He says, gee, I don't know what we're going to do. I said, I don't know what to do. I like Roy, but he keeps calling up, and he came down the other day, and he says he was waiting at the office for crying out loud, and he wanted to see Sherby. He was trying to get an application, and they're not hiring anybody down at the office. And what can you say to the guy? He says, I took him out for lunch. What are you going to do? And my mother says, well, I don't know. I just don't know what to do. We've known Bernice and Roy for a long time. And so, we're sitting around listening to this. Well, you ain't heard the worst, friends. You ain't heard the worst. I don't know whether I should even tell you this, because this story gets worse and worse, and even as yes, when I tell you this story, it makes me sick to think of it. It really does. About 2 weeks go by, and of course, my mother did not call Bernice. And when you don't call somebody and you don't answer some letter or something like that, you tend after a certain length of time to figure it's all blown over, and everything's okay now, see, right? Oh. Well, 2 or 3 weeks go by, and it just so happened this was a Saturday. Now, Saturday afternoon is I was home from school, my kid brother was home from school. My old man only worked a half a day that day, so he's home, he's messing around down in the basement doing something. It's Saturday. And, there's a certain kind of a openness about a Saturday. Saturday's not like any other day, and my mother's messing around with the vacuum cleaner or something, when all of a sudden the front door rings. Like that, Well, there's an automatic reaction in this neighborhood where I live when the front door rang. The front door rang almost all the time in this neighborhood, and there were almost always door-to-door salesmen. Because people you knew didn't ring the doorbell. They would come around the back, or they would call or something, but they didn't come to your front door and ring the doorbell. They just don't do that, see. It wasn't that kind of a neighborhood. Well, the doorbell rings, and like that, see. My mother instantly does what she always did when a door-to-door peddler did. She drops and she dropped just like a GI, that was getting shot at. She drops and hides under the dining room table, see, instantly. And she says, "Shh, there's a peddler. Shut up, you kids." Well, I was up in the front bedroom, see. So I shut up right away, see. My kid brother, he shuts up, and the old man says, "What's going on? I heard a bell." He always hollers. She says, "Shh, shut up. There's a peddler." It's okay. And that was it, see. Well, now, usually after the second or third ring, whoever it was selling the aluminum cookware or the encyclopedia by mail or whatever the heck it was, or, would eventually go. You see, he'd ring twice, and then he would go, see. So, the bell rings again. We're all silent. I don't know whether you've ever done this in your house, hid out from a peddler, have you? You never did? Well, that's interesting. I think that's bigger in the Midwest than it is out here. I don't think you have as many door-to-door types. The Fuller Brush Man used to harass the Fuller Brush Man, chased my mother around the garage 3 times once, trying to give her a free gift. The bell's going all the time. So this bell keeps ringing, and my mother says, "Hey." And I said, "Yeah." See, I'm in the front bedroom right around the corner from where she was. See, I was up near the front where if I wanted to look out of the window, the front bedroom window, I could see the front porch. You see, this front bedroom was right at the front of the house, see. She says, "Take a look and see if he's still there." I said, "Okay." So I creep across the floor. And he had these curtains, see. I creeped up the window and I peeks out. There was no peddler out there. I said, "There's nobody there." She said, "I guess he's gone." And just then, you hear on the back. You hear this knocking on the back. See, some of these peddlers would go from the front to the back. They didn't let you off that easy. See, he knows you're in there. See, or he suspects you're in there. He's going to get you, see. So knocking like that, see. My mother is still under the dining room table. She says, "What the heck?" She says, "He's around the back now." She says, "Randy." My kid brother, who was in the day bed, under the day bed in the next room. She says, "Randy," she says, "sneak around the side and peek out the window over there by the stairs and see who's in the back." So Randy says, "I don't want to." She says, "Go ahead and do it. Now you do what I said." So he climbs out from under the day bed and he creeps on the floor, and you're like that. He sneaks around and he peeks out, and he turns around and he says, "It's Mrs. Wheeler." My mother says, "Who? What? Mrs. Wheeler?" He says, "Yeah, she's got some kind of a bag or something." So mother says, "Mrs. Wheeler." She's at the back door. She's knocking on the door. She really wants to get in. At that point, my mother climbs out from under the table, and she pretends like she's got her machine running. She can't hear. It goes, she can't hear. So she turns it off. She walks through the kitchen, and she opens the back door. And she says, "Oh, why, we were just talking about you. I was going to call you. Why, for heaven's sakes, I was just talking to my husband, and he said to give you a call. We were going to call you in about 10 minutes. What a coincidence." You ain't heard the rest. It gets worse, friends. We'll be back after these little commercial messages.
Italiani di New York e dintorno. Chi vi parla è il vostro amico Vincenzo Gardenia.
Sir, excuse me, I know who you are.
Who am I?
You are the Godfather.
I am God's favorite.
No, you are the Godfather, part 1 or 2, sir.
Let me finish. I'm inviting my Italian friends to see Il Favorito di Dio al Eugene O'Neill Theater.
Is that a play?
È una commedia che vi farà ridere.
Now go
ridere,
slow because I'm
ridere.
getting it. It's a comedy?
That makes you laugh.
Oh, that's
laugh,
nice.
Laugh. Venite che vi divertete un mondo.
Oh.
Vedrete il famoso comico
who's in
Carlo
it?
Nelson Riley.
Oh, from television. He's
Sì.
terrific. Is he as good looking as they say?
Oh, anche più bello.
Oh, you can say that again. Now, what else? Who else is in it,
C'è
sir?
Vincenzo Gardenia.
Oh, from the movies, Death Wish.
Sì.
Oh, he's terrific.
Ah.
Academy Award nominee, Tony Award winner.
Risate, risate, risate.
What's a risata? Oh, I know. Don't tell me. The risata is the little pepperonis.
Laugh, laugh.
Risata means laugh. Oh.
At the Eugene O'Neill Theater.
It can't be as funny as your suit. Look at the way that shines.
God's favorite.
Boy, I never saw anyone move their hands so much on a radio commercial.
I'm riding back from New York on the 532, and this guy next to me is reading the New York Times, and I'm reading the Trenton Times, just minding my own business. He starts looking over my paper. I just catch his glance and give him my indulgent look. Then I turn to one of the new writers they have in the Trenton Times, and this guy's doing another one of those sideways shifts. So I kind of tilt the paper his way a bit so he can see it. That sort of embarrasses him, but I'm still friendly. Then he goes back to the New York Times, and I'm really into the Trenton Times with a special section called Accent on Living. And he comes back again, just like I figured. Finally, I make the big move. I get up to get off at Princeton Junction and leave my Trenton Times on the seat. He tries hard to play it cool. He waits till he doesn't think I see him, then he looks around and grabs it. I just smiled.
A good paper getting better, oh, the Trenton Times.
Someday you'll
Oh, come on, sing it, gang. Let's hear it.
Someday you'll own.
Someday you're just gonna give in.
Sooner or later.
Sooner or later.
You'll own Generals.
With so many new kinds of tires coming out, and so many claims being made about tires, maybe you're a little puzzled about making the right choice. Well, we have the solution. Just go out and buy General Tires. That's all. Just, sooner or later you're gonna do it. The General Tire Specialist, he'll help you put the right tires on your car. If you need new tires, he'll be glad to spend a few minutes explaining which General Tire is best for you, your driving, and your budget. Your General Tire Specialist is one reason why, sooner or later, you'll own Generals. Look them up in the yellow pages.
Sooner
Sing it
or
out.
later you'll own Generals. Sooner or later you'll own Generals.
We'd like to offer you a rebate of $100, $150, even $200, and you don't even have to buy a car to get it. Because now, in a bow to today's economy, Saramar Beach Hotel on the picturesque North Shore of Puerto Rico will give you a rebate on a luxurious resort vacation. Stay with us a minimum of 6 nights between March 1st and March 31st, Modified American Plan, or take one of Saramar's regular 6-night packages, and we'll rebate $100 on your total single or double occupancy room bill at checkout, or $150 for triple occupancy, or $200 quadruple occupancy. You can apply the rebate to rooms, meals, greens fees on Saramar's 2 golf courses, tennis, anything. It's a great way to snap out of winter and snap up a bargain. For details of Saramar's March rebate plan or for reservations, see your travel agent, or in New York, call 586-4459. 586-4459.
Well, Mrs. Wheeler has a big tray she's carrying, and it's covered with some kind of white cloth. She's got a tray. And she opens the tray. My kid brother thought it was a bag. She had a tray. See, she opens this thing, and she says to my mother, she says, would you care to buy some triangular donuts? She said, Roy and I have gone in the triangular donut business. And we're here to offer you donuts. She says, they're delicious donuts. We made them at home, and they're really nice donuts. And would you care to buy some? She says, I have iced ones here, and I have ones that have sugar on them, and I have some plain donuts. Now, would you care for donuts? What do you say? My mother said, why, come right in, Bernice. Why, that's wonderful. You mean you've opened up a new business? Why, you're selling triangular? They're just wonderful. Why, I'm so pleased. You mean, why? And she buys 2 dozen of these donuts, and Mrs. Wheeler says, well, I'm in a hurry now. I have to continue on my route. She says, I'm gonna see everybody. I'm gonna see Mrs. Bruner, everybody around here. She says, and you're one of my first customers. My mother buys these donuts, and she's got 2 dozen donuts now. Well, the kids, donuts. So I says, gee, donuts, wow. And she says, well, here, you can have one. They were unbelievably rotten. They were bad donuts. These donuts, I can't describe how they tasted, but I can. Well, actually, here I can roughly describe. Do you know what lard tastes like? Lard isn't the same as Crisco. Well, these donuts tasted roughly like they were made out of. They were first of all, they were rubbery, but there was a curious lard taste to them, and they were hard on the outside, and they were kind of gummy in the inside. And they just were lousy donuts. Now, my idea of a great dessert really was a Twinkie. And, I said, they're not so good. So the old man comes charging up out of the basement. He said, who was that? And my mother says, that was Bernice. She and Roy are now selling triangular donuts. They've got a triangular donut machine that they bought, and that they're selling these donuts. The old man takes one look. He says, donuts, great, give me one. He takes he says, are they terrible donuts? And that began the saga. One of the worst things that ever happened in the neighborhood. Every day, Mrs. Wheeler would show up at the back porch, knocking on the door with the donuts. And every day, my mother would buy donuts. Well, you have to. What are you going to do, And finally, the old man, after about 3 weeks of these unbelievably bad, rotten triangular donuts, he says, look, we had donuts, we were using them for door stops. The old man decided what he was going to do was grind them up and try to see if they could be used to clean the back porch or something. They were just terrible donuts. Finally, he says, look, forget the damn donuts. I don't want to buy any more donuts. Tell her we don't want it. He says, I'm not made out of money. We've spent $5,000 on triangular donuts in the last 3 weeks, and I'm not going to buy any more donuts. My mother said, well, it's Bernice. What can we say? He said, I don't care if it is Bernice. Tell her we don't want any more donuts. Tell her I've gone on a diet. Tell her you've got diabetes. Tell her the kids have got donut sickness and they can't eat donuts. We can't have donuts. No more donuts. My mother said, you always give me the bad stuff to do. Sure, you're always great in giving advice, but you always give me the bad stuff. He said, what do you mean? I pay the rent around here. Doggone it, what do you mean? You want to go down and work at the office? All right. The least you can do is tell Bernice we don't want donuts. Well, then we had this giant donut fight. I don't want to even bother you with that. This donut fight went on for about an hour and a half. Wound up with my mother crying, the old man yelling, and the window got broke. Anyway, before it was out, my mother decided she's going to tell Bernice she doesn't want any donuts. So the next day, sure enough, like death and taxes, there's Bernice banging on the back door. My mother said, oh, Bernice, gee, and at that point, Bernice, she figured she got a customer. She says, I finally made the raisin ones. And you were asking about raisin. I made 2 dozen raisin donuts for you. And you asked about them, so I've had the raisin donuts with the ice. And my mother said, oh, Bernice, he's gone on a diet. He's getting a little pot there, so he doesn't like me to buy. He says they're just such good donuts that he can't resist them. And I just can't buy any more donuts, Bernice. And after all, we've got 2 gunny sacks full of them anyway. But I just can't buy any more donuts, really. And Bernice says, oh, that's all right. Why didn't you just tell me? She says, I'll be back Monday. My mother says, Bernice, I don't bring any more donuts around because, it's temptation. And she says, you don't want any more? My mother says, no more donuts. Well, for about a week, Bernice kept going around selling donuts, and one day she just simply stopped. And that was the end of the triangular donut business. Except one day, about 3 years later, me and Schwartz and Bruner and Clifford are down in Clifford's basement. And over in the corner is this big machine with glass. Yeah, glass. It looked like a big popcorn machine. It had dust all over it. And I remember Schwartz saying, hey, what's that, Cliff? And Cliff says, it's some kind of a machine that makes donuts. And Schwartz says, makes donuts? You mean you got a machine that makes donuts? And Cliff says, oh, yeah, my father was making donuts. Something. And we played with the donut machine for a while. Opened the doors and worked the knobs and had things in it. And the dust was an inch thick on it. Blasted hopes. Sunken dreams. And sometimes now, even now, at 3 in the morning, I wake up and I see a dusty, triangular-shaped donut machine. And I realize the human tragedy has many dimensions, many forms. Beware the Ides of March. This is WOR New York. Stay tuned for In Conversation.